is Casual Babble. Good morning, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the show. This is BC Babbles, and you're listening and watching Casual Babble, the Queen City's live streamed morning show and podcast coming to you from Queen City, USA. Before we hop in, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell. That way you're notified about all future content on the YouTube channel. If you're enjoying the show on Podbean, do not forget to give us a follow there. And wherever you're enjoying the show from, go ahead and hop into the comments, say hello, or the chat, say hello, and let me know where you're coming in from so we can get this thing going. So this morning, I wanted to start off with a question. I don't do that enough. I like to start off impromptu with a question to get your ideas on something. And this question does, admittedly, come from yesterday, due to an experience yesterday. And that question is, how do you respond when companies tell you, and I spelled the word wrong, when companies tell you no, but they don't tell you why? Let me fix how I swear to God, I am college educated, but I did not spell that word right. So, again, how do you respond when companies tell you no, but they seem to not be able to tell you why? I don't know about you, but for me, it's one of the most infuriating moments in almost any part of engaging with a prospective employer, especially in the interviewing process. You're trying to get hired by a seemingly promising employer, right? So, full disclosure, for a little while now, I've been in convos with a company, and at this point, I have interviewed with them 5 different times. And, 5 interviews I think is a lot, but being a team-oriented person, I empathize. Sure, good company, plenty of candidates, and they want to, kind of weave it down to the top tier perspective or the best looking candidates. I get that. Now, the part where I'm kind of like, okay, obviously you've requested, and we have put in a lot of our personal time to be able to engage with you and to meet with the team. At this point, I've spoken with 9 different people on the team, so I've gotten to converse with a lot. And on my end, and from what the feedback has been through the process, the convos have been super positive. They've been super constructive. The team's learned as much about me as I've gotten to learn from them. And overall, it's just a super promising prospective employer. And unfortunately, I got the news yesterday that though the decision came down to me and another person, they're going to be going with the other person, And we've had convos before on this show about how to, accept the no's or to anticipate or how to deal with the no's. And granted, the initial hit of the no never really gets all that much better. It still kind of sucks. But one of the things that I've always said, and one of the things that I've always kind of championed in regarding myself and how I handle those not preferred responses from prospective employers, is that I always respond, because it's always an email. They're never going to call you and say it's a no. It's always going to be an email, which to me has its own connotation, which I can get into a little bit. But what I've always chosen to do is to retain my professionality, retain my maturity. And I know some of you, and I've had a couple comments before, be like, why? Like, why the high road? And so what I do typically is I will respond to the email, because again, always an email, and I'll say, thank you so much for providing me the opportunity to speak with your team about the position. Thank you so much for the extended consideration for me to take on this role. I really, truly appreciate it. And then immediately I'm like, okay, is there any feedback you can provide to me? Any kind of constructive criticism that I can personally make use of to either, put some attention towards something that needs to be fixed or updated? Is there something that I'm personally missing that I didn't realize throughout the process that ultimately kept me from being the top tier candidate for the role? And you've probably experienced this, but I think only like 5% of the time will I ever actually get feedback in those positions. And less than that will the person who's letting me know that I'm not being chosen for the position actually go ahead and give me feedback within the same email. It's not a very common occurrence. And this lack of what I feel to be basic courteous information is why I think a lot of young professionals, entrepreneurs, especially within the millennial and Gen Z generations, begin to lose trust in the process. And that's why you're seeing a lot of different attitude changes. Granted, attitude changes that I think are pretty kind of overdue. Like when you hear younger professionals and entrepreneurs say, you need to discuss comp immediately. Don't let someone pull you through 5 different interviews without mentioning comp. Let's, cut the time. Let's make sure that time isn't being wasted. Find out right now whether or not ultimately the job's going to be worth it, because the job should be feasible. Why should someone be pulled through multiple interviews just to find out that the ultimate comp for the role isn't even feasible for where they are, where they live? Because ultimately you're going to have to say no if you're not going to be taking on a position that provides you the income to live, to actually be able to thrive, not only at work, but at home, because ultimately that's just a huge waste of time. No one wants to be trying to living in a city like Charlotte, hell, even Mooresville, my hometown. You can't really survive on $35 a year. Typically it's like 50 base, probably 55 base to be able to feasibly consider living on your own or living just anywhere that doesn't require you to still be with family, So, and those attitude changes, again, I think are coming from the fact that there's this tendency for companies to let someone know, no, you're not good enough for the job, but there's such a low ratio, such a low percentage of them being able to tell you why. So when I got my no yesterday, and it was, I can probably pull it up, it's because it was, I think around 4, between, it wasn't EOD, essentially. It wasn't EOD, so I knew there was plenty of time, I thought, to respond and just be like, what's the update? So I got that news at 4:15 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. And so I'm a very quick replier. I'm typically got my phone on me. I typically make sure that I will get a notification from an email that's not spam or some kind of subscription. So I know it's like someone is actively trying to contact me. And so I replied within, how many minutes is that? 8 minutes. Not even 10 minutes when I got this information. And I replied, doing as I mentioned, thanking them for the opportunity and empathizing to the best of my ability, and then asking for feedback, And because the individual mentioned that they had just spoken with the team, my thinking is, because again, the conversation's been so positive, the conversation's been constructive, they should, I would think, mention even briefly, yeah, tough decision, but we're going with this one and not this one because this, and I think that would be part of the conversation naturally. But thus far, I don't know yet. That info has not been provided. So definitely kind of in those moments where I'm like, when the time's been requested and the time has been able to be put aside by you, the candidate, and you're kind of waiting to figure out what the no comes from, it can be super frustrating, right? It can be just definitely trying because we have all these things again that come at us that tell us that we need to do better. We're not good. Again, we're not good enough for so many things. But we need to do what we can to meet certain standards. And there seems to just be way too much of this telling us what we're not doing right, but not nearly enough letting us know how we can go about beginning to do those things the right way, right? So, and I think that's the irritating part for a lot of us, is just that there's so much of that you can't do it, but not enough of, okay, how can I do it? Give me some more info. And it can be just, again, super frustrating because you want to know how you can better yourself. I think any decent up-and-coming entrepreneur, young professional, someone who's trying to be some kind of developing leader, trailblazer in their area wants to know, okay, I feel like I'm here. What may I not be, what within my abilities, my experience, maybe even my countenance is not quite there yet. And then how do I go about upgrading those things, cultivating myself either on paper or in person in a way that elevates me more than previously, and I think it's a very, very professional, very mature for young professionals, especially millennial and Gen Z, who can hear the no and still be like, thank you. What can I do to improve? That speaks a lot to, I think, the initiative, the perseverance, the drive, and I think that should be reciprocated to a degree. Why can't you, and maybe if you are listening and you happen to be a manager, a hiring manager, some kind of recruiter, and you're the person who has to send out these no emails, and maybe you can be like, maybe you can answer the question, why can't that simple feedback be given? Or why is there such a low percentage of that feedback being provided? Why is there such a level of just saying you can't do this or you can't take on this role, but not how you could in the future be considered the higher tier candidate? Is there information out there that we need? Personally, I'm always thinking, as far as, I'm always like, have friends overview resumes, have friends do a mock interview with you. If you have any friends who happen to be in that position, who run those kinds of interactions on a constant basis, they'd be a great resource for you to tap into to figure out, if there are any kinks, or not kinks, that might sound kind of weird, but like any kind of either non-ideal elements in how you typically handle yourself in a situation like that maybe you can consciously put some effort into altering. I shared the story before, but I want to share it again because it's something that I didn't realize at the time was an issue for me, and I top tier appreciate this person for having the gumption to just tell me what happened. So early on into my first position out of college, I knew very early on that this was not going to ultimately be the place, or at the very least, in this place, in the job I was in, was not going to be the place I wanted to be at. So early on, and I'm talking months, like not even so, I started this job in August of 2016. By October, I was interviewing for other jobs because I knew this was just not going to be the place for me. So, or this was not going to be the place of growth that I was hoping it was going to either be or lead into when I took on the position. So I was interviewing with WBTV in Charlotte. They had an open position for a digital content coordinator or manager, something like that. And I was super excited. I went in there, and one of the best parts about the interview was that I was actually talking to somebody who I had met while I was still in college, because I was a part of this program called the Keller Radio Talent Institute with App State up in Boone. And so I got to meet this guy because he came up to be a speaker one day. And so he was the kind of spearheader of the interview. Plus, I was going to be speaking to his other digital content coordinator so that I could get kind of both sides of, not only doing the job, but like that job's relation to this guy who is above the job. And to me, during the conversation, during the interview, I felt super positive. I was excited for the position, to talk about the position, because I was I was at the WBTV studios. I was there in person and in the prospective office that I would ideally be working in. So to me, I thought it was great. I loved being there. I loved talking about the position. I loved getting to learn more about it. And I loved getting to, at the very least, network with this guy that I hadn't seen in maybe a year-ish, and then this new individual that I'd never met before. And despite me feeling really good about it, I was passed over for the job. And, bummer, because, it's a no, and no's are never great. They never feel good when they're given to you. But I responded to the email, because again, always an email. And I was like, hey, thank you so much again, my whole spiel that I do. And I was like, any feedback, any particular reason, because I felt like the conversation was great. It was productive. I was super excited, and thankfully this guy, one in a million in my experience, he actually replied and he gave me feedback. And he said, you came off as being disinterested in the position, which to me threw me aback. Because again, I felt excited going into this conversation, getting to be at the WBTV studios and getting to discuss this opportunity live with these people. And so to be told that I came off somehow as being disinterested in the job, I was like, wait, how is that feasibly possible? I'm definitely so into the idea of this position. And in his commentary, I noticed he mentioned visually my countenance somehow drove in the idea that I was disinterested in the job. And essentially I realized, oh, whoa, your boy has resting bitch face. Which is something I had never been told before. I had never been told that I have resting bitch face. It's not something that I had ever been brought to my attention. And I think here's what happens though. Whenever, I'm listening to somebody and they're, let's say, talking about their background, or they're talking about their job, or like difficult moments that the job that I'm interviewing for could potentially face in the day-to-day, I'm not focusing on smiling. I'm focusing on listening. I'm trying to really take in the information I'm being given so that I can come up with some organic questions as to further engage the conversation. And that results in me not smiling as much. Because again, I'm focusing on gaining this information, breaking it down in my head, and actually being able to make use of it. But as a result, that came across to these people that I was talking to, that I seemed disinterested in the job, which I knew wasn't true, but it was too late at that point for me to actually disillusion them from that misconception. And so the ultimate point of me sharing that is that we don't always know. I mean, most of the time we have no clue what it is that's going to keep us from being that top tier candidate, right? And one of the things that can help us address those things is to be given feedback, which is why I think it's such an important thing for hiring managers and really anyone from a prospective team that you've spoken to be able to do is provide you with that feedback. What sense does it make to be so comfortable with saying someone can't do this, but not say that why they can't do this? Because clearly why this person isn't able to fit this mold. So then why can't you share it? There's no way for you to not know when you've decided they're not good enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you tell me that I'm not able to take on this position, but somehow not being able to tell me why that is? And I assume that because it's a natural part of that conversation, coming to that decision, why this person can't have this job. What the why is, so why not just tell someone what it is? Because again, I had zero clue that I had this RBF that I wore whenever I was listening to somebody else, because I'm trying to take in information. And it cost me a really promising position, which still to this day, to a degree, kind of kills me. It's like, God, if only he had, in the moment, brought it to my attention and said, hey, BC, I want to make sure that we're still good here. You seem a little disinterested. And I would have been able to right then, right there, be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm focusing on listening to you guys. I'm not focusing on smiling. I'm trying to really take in what you're telling me. And please understand, I'm super into this position. I really want to learn about it. I really want to understand it, so that if I should be offered the job, I'm ready to take it on. And here's the thing. Here's to be bluntly honest, and I hope every young professional feels this way too. And I hope that people in the hiring manager positions understand this as well. If I said yes to an interview, I'm interested in the position. I'm not going to proactively set myself up for wasted time by taking on an interview for a job I'm not into. So if I've been extended the invitation and I've said yes, and if I'm into a job, I will immediately say yes, and I'll give you when I'm available. It's because I'm interested in the job. Hands down, no questions. There should be no confusion about it. If I said yes, I'm interested, that should never at any further point be a question. Now, granted, I was reached out to by a company I honestly do not recall ever reaching out to, but they were like, hey, you've submitted your application. And there was a day, a few weeks back, where I was just reaching out to different marketing companies and just sending them my resume. So I think that's what happened. But they asked me to hop onto an interview 2 days ago, or no, 3 days ago now. Wow, it's already Friday. And I was like, okay, sure. It's for, the hard part was I had no idea what position it was for. I looked up the company and they had a couple different ones open that I would be into. So I'm not sure what it was going to be. And then literally I was on that interview for, honestly, I think it was maybe 20 seconds, maybe. And then I hopped right back off. It was another one of those smaller companies that pushes in-person sales or store people under the guise of other positions that just don't make sense. I'm talking people who are saying marketing assistants, marketing associates, or communication specialists, but really you're looking for a person to stand in a Samsung kiosk at a Target to sell phone plans to people. That's not me. So yeah, so I hopped off that interview super quick. And I didn't feel bad about it because the script they were using, and after a couple times, you're going to recognize this script, where they're talking about, he opened up by saying, so this was going to be a one-on-one person, but we get so many applications that this has to be a group conversation, yada, yada. That's when I knew, out. I am tapping out. This is not it. I've been through 2 other companies pushing this, and I'm just not here for it. I'm not an indoor salesperson who wants to stand at a Samsung kiosk at a Target all day. It's not me. I like to oversee marketing strategies and oversee communications for a company's digital platforms. That's what I do. I don't sell phone plans at a kiosk. Just not me. And I'm not even sure why I brought that up. It was a random thought. But yeah, it's, I think people who are facilitating the interview conversations should feel, and I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, I'm hoping the simple issue is that for some reason you're too nervous to in person provide the feedback, or just even an email to provide the feedback. There's for some reason a lack of comfort, or you're just, I don't know, concerned about something. But people in those positions who facilitate those conversations, from one who is in the prospective employee position, to know, just be honest. Just allow the conversation to be transparent, because that's what so many people claim in the interview process anyway, is that they want the conversation to be transparent, which I 100% support. But at the same time, then that means all facets of the convo should be transparent. Just, if you can, in the moment, give yourself a pause and reaffirm with your prospective employee that this is something they still want. And that's if the question for you is this person still interested? Because I'm not sure I can tell right now. Then ask. There is nothing wrong with asking that. Because here's the thing. If you do ask them that question and the answer happens to be no, then okay, that means you can stop the convo. Everyone can kind of can go home, and no more time is wasted. But if that's your only concern and you ask them and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just listening. I'm here because I want to be here. Then you're good. Then that no longer has to be a question and no longer has to be any kind of concern, because it's been addressed. Address it. Ask questions. Address it. Don't let those what ifs remain what ifs. Answer the questions, or provide the questions so they can be answered. It's that simple. It's super simple. And I think it's something that, again, people in those positions need to be more comfortable doing. And again, it's me giving you the absolute benefit of the doubt, assuming that it's simply a question of a lack of comfort, as opposed to something more insidious, which I'm going to not assume. So, yeah, take the win. Take the win. I'm assuming that it's simply something that innocent, but it's something innocent that results in people either being left in positions that aren't good for them, that aren't feasible for them, or in some positions like myself, still lacking any kind of income. And, I'm wanting to join a team. So it's like, come on, just ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. So I wanted to take a moment to let you know that if you're looking for ways to support the casual Babble community, there are a couple of great ways to do so. There is a Patreon active right now, and I'm putting the links to the Patreon and the Buy Me a Coffee links in the chat. So go ahead and check those out. Patreon has 3 tiers. There is the tier 1, which I call the Casual Babbler, that gets you early access to vlog content, and you get a shout out on every future video on the channel, vlog, ASMR, and podcast as well. Your name will be on kind of a title tag at the beginning. Additionally, there's tier 2, which I call the Constant Babbler. and that will give you also newsletter shout out. There is a monthly newsletter from Casual Babble, which you can sign up for on casualbabble.com. There is a form right below the homepage's main picture. It says sign up and keep up, and the last one just went out yesterday, so if you missed it, I'm sorry, but if you want to be on the mailing list for the next one, be sure to submit it today. It'll come out in a few weeks from now. And then where was it going? So yeah, so newsletter shout out, but you also get early access to ASMR content as well. And I just recorded my new ASMR video yesterday, and so it'll be uploaded today and made available on Patreon starting today. This is, and for context, today is October 21st, Friday. Additionally, as new benefits are cultivated and discussed, you as tier 3, a crazy babbler, will be included in those conversations, and we'll discuss new benefits. I've got a couple in mind that I've been kind of speaking out and collaborating with another friend with, and those will be offered soon. So if you want to be involved in those kind of conversations that help to shape the community that you're working to be a part of, then definitely go for tier 3. Otherwise, consider the early content access that's provided from tier 1 and tier 2. Additionally, there is also a Buy Me a Coffee link. Again, those links are both right now in the chats. Buy Me a Coffee allows you to donate when you want to and at a price that you want to donate at. So it's totally at your leisure whenever you feel like it. And again, you'll be incorporated into the community from there as well. And if you want to, I think I covered that, but just in case, again, I will let you know. If you want to be included on the mailing list for the Casual Babble newsletter, be sure to sign up today. The last one went out yesterday, so the next one will be out in a few weeks, so just keep that in mind. With that said, it is time to hop into today's submissions, and let's see what's going on out there. And don't forget, if you want to submit, that's what I was going to say. If you were looking to submit your stories, questions, or office gossip, you can do so in 2 ways. Those links are in the chat already. There is a Reddit community called Talk Office Gossip. That is my community, where you can submit your stories and your questions, or you can head on over to casualbabble.com. There is a page called Submit Your Story, and you can do so there. My admin will let you know when your submission is going to be used on the show. And if for some reason, like time-wise, for time reasons, any submissions don't make it to the show, they will be put into the advice column section of the Casual Babble monthly newsletter. Again, sign-up form for that is going to be on the homepage of casualbabble.com. So, first submission this morning. It's titled, I feel selfish and childish that my distaste for work grows each week. Hate that. Let's go into it. All right, so I used to love my job, and most of the time I do, but not because I am passionate about it, and only because I know how fortunate I am to have the job that I do. It's not physically demanding. It's a good paycheck that comes with healthcare. My phone and phone services are paid for because I need a smartphone for work. I get 3 weeks paid vacation a year and a week of paid sick days. It's a great job. Maybe I'm just burnt out, but every week my dread over having to do this job grows. I am struggling to focus more and more, and my productivity has hit a serious decline in the last couple of months. I hate that because it's such a great job with great bosses who deserve great employees. When I have an emergency or something comes up, they let me leave to handle my life stuff with zero fuss. I do take breaks from work. I don't bring work home, and I have Saturdays and Sundays off. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty bad about myself and that I can't push through this feeling and get my productivity up despite how lucky I am. It's not that I just don't want to work. I'm trying to save up to start my own business and something I'm passionate about. I wish I had realized this dream a few years ago before I put myself in $26,000 worth of debt. Preach. And again, I know I'm being childish and I did this to myself, just sort of venting. If I didn't have to put such large chunks of money towards my debt, and my partner didn't have to do the same with her debt, we would live off just her paychecks after I saved the startup cost to launch my own business. But we're determined to pay off our debt as fast as possible so she can take her job change with little risk. And I won't be able to leave my job for years because we need the healthcare, especially when we start our family. I don't know. Again, just venting, but I know this is very first world problems of me, but I'm sitting at work struggling to get this project finished, wishing I was working on my team business instead, my dream business instead, and struggling to shake this feeling off. So, honestly, in the initial parts of your submission, hearing that you're just not finding the ability to focus and be more productive, um, and that, despite the positivity of the job you have, you're just kind of feeling this dread. I wonder if it's a question of maybe you should find a therapist. Maybe there's something underlying there, or maybe you maybe even have some kind of on. And again, I'm going to say this, full disclosure, I'm not any kind of medical professional, but I struggle with focusing a lot too, especially when I'm somewhere that is, even if it's a positive place where I'm at, but it's not like the end game position. I find myself focusing, or like allowing my brain and my mind to scatter and just be in 1,000 places at once. I wonder, and I wondered this about myself, if you might have any kind of undiagnosed ADHD, just being able to, or not being able to focus, and especially if it's coinciding with these kind of dread feelings that you're just like, you're feeling lackluster about it. I wonder if you should just like take a day to just speak with a counselor, talk to somebody who can help you realize any kind of underlying thing. Nothing bad about this at all. I'm sure a lot of people experience this, but I wonder, if you have something undiagnosed like ADHD, that is causing you to lack these powers of concentration, definitely find an opportunity to speak to somebody who can help you determine that. And if that's the case, go on to whatever regimen you need to, in the meantime, at least, find that focus and be as productive as possible. And you're noticing that your productivity is going down in the past couple of months. That's a long time to notice that decline in productivity. So I would definitely speak to somebody in the medical field who might be able to help you determine if there is an underlying undiagnosed element that you're just not aware of yet. So definitely take care of yourself, to be sure. Let's see. Next submission is labeled or titled Depressed from Work Mistakes. Ooh, I feel like I'm going to understand this way too well, but here we go. Does anyone else get super depressed when they make mistakes at work? I just started a new job a few months ago, and I know I'm bound to make mistakes, but every time they happen, I just feel like the biggest idiot in the world. And today I made the mistake by not sending something to someone because I didn't know I needed to do it, basically. Anyway, I actually cried about it because, well, I feel like the team idiot. How the heck do I get over this depression that come over me, I think, when I make mistakes? I literally feel like I need to be perfect when I'm not. It totally breaks me. And what do I do to stop feeling this way? I know it has to be normal and to make mistakes when you're new, right? First of all, yes, when you're brand new to a job, when you are brand new to the team, to the structure of the company, making mistakes is a given. And I think anyone who is actively on you about that, or like who provides you negative feedback about that, clearly forgot what it was like to be a new person at some point. But yeah, making mistakes as a new employee is a given. Obviously you want to try to pay as much attention as you can during training, and hopefully it's good training so that, you can have some proactive stratagems in place to minimize initial mistakes. But otherwise, I'd say I totally get this too much. I am super perfectionist. I am super self-critical. And if I make even small mistakes, I will think about those mistakes months down the road when they are no longer even relevant. On top of that, I find myself I'm the kind of person who will like work on a project and I'll essentially kind of get it done early because I know what I'm doing. And it's not a question of me not having the ability to get it done. But I will think to myself, no, there's something else that I need to do here. This isn't perfect. And so I'll keep tinkering and messing with something and wasting too much time on it because I always think I can do better. And I allow that to be a little toxic to myself, and it causes me to kind of waste time on things. But I super get it. It's super normal. And I think this all comes circling back around to, knowing how to disconnect from work, because I think especially when we don't disconnect and we feel this way about those kinds of mistakes at work, it tears you down. It burns you out. So take time to learn how to disconnect, and again, and accept the fact that you are newer and that mistakes are a given. But it tells, take kind of comfort in the fact that it tells you that you care about what you do, which is good. Work initiative is always great to have. But just learn to disconnect, learn to allow yourself to alleviate or let go of that concern. It'll help you on the long run. And if that means like if your company offers breaks, take those breaks. Do not work through the breaks, and allow yourself to honestly detach mentally from work. If that means you make sure that you have your Disney Plus or Hulu subscription on your phone or your tablet, so that the second that it's lunchtime and you got your food, you're hopping on watching that Hocus Pocus too, whatever. Just honestly learn how to disconnect, because again, it'll burn you out, and you being burnt out doesn't serve doesn't serve anybody. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You're all good. I'm pretty sure you're fine. Let's see here. Next submission is labeled laid off today, but was it done legally? Ooh. Okay. All right. I was hired almost exactly a year ago as a software developer, but doing data scientist work. There are other data scientists on the team, formerly titled data scientist. Regardless, I did the same work as them. Now the company is going through budget cuts, and my manager, who has always hated me, love that, is laying me off under the reason of budget cuts, and there's no need for a software developer in the team. Then why were you hired for that? All right. After the first 3 months, I've done 0 development work. I've been working in the capacity of a data scientist, and within the past year, other data scientists have been hired. If my title were data scientist, the layoff process would at least be last in, first out. The new hire would have been laid off. However, my manager used my title to his advantage and laid me off instead, despite the fact that my title is just a nuance. It's obvious my manager took this nuance as an opportunity to lay me off. Do I have a legal standing here if my title meant nothing and I was actually a data scientist, not a software developer? Whatever title you're hired into, like whatever paperwork you signed, whatever title's there, that's it. That's the title you have. That's the role you were offered. I would absolutely talk to HR and see what their thoughts are. If you got the Mooney, if you have the funds to get a opinion from someone in legal, do that too. Whatever, I would bring up if you have your documentation on you, look, I signed on as a developer and you have not given me any software developer projects in 9 months. So what the hell's going on? This is definitely very sketchy for me. Yeah. I mean, and it could also be a thing where depending on how that company's put together, it could be a thing where somehow there's a loophole that makes it legal. Is it fair? Absolutely not. And I would definitely have convos about that. Definitely speak to HR. Definitely speak to legal if you can, because it doesn't make sense to do that. And I can go on about that. But I definitely say get a second opinion, network and communicate, because definitely not fair, but you want to make sure that this company's not set up in such a way where it is somehow stupidly legal, because, then expose them. My thoughts. All right, next one. Let's see here. Ooh, I missed. Ooh, yes. So next submission is titled, and I quote, I feel like a piece of shit, or feel like a piece of shit. There we go. Let's see. I work at a small locally owned automotive shop, and my boss is upset because I've called in the past 2 days. I told him I had a stomach virus and I couldn't take my son to daycare since he may have what I got, which is a lie. I honestly just spent the last 2 days with him, letting him run around in his Halloween costume and just enjoyed this time. I feel like a POS because my workload is on someone else and my boss is upset and said I'm killing him, but I don't get vacation days unless I ask for them and I never go on vacation. You can still ask for vacation days and just not go to work, even if you're not going somewhere. He was being an asshole earlier this week, so am I a POS or is it completely normal to just skip work for a couple of days? It's normal to want to skip work for sure. To be honest, I think the point of requesting vacation in advance is so people can coordinate and make sure that the workload is handled. But I think if you're just waiting till the day of to call out, then they're kind of in scramble mode, and that could be what's causing the workload you'd usually have to be put on other people to be strenuous. It seems like you're under the impression that you have to actually be going on vacation, like traveling somewhere to just take vacation days, which is not a thing. You can do this thing with your kid and still have like pre-approved vacation days. Just do that. I understand if you feel like kind of a POS. I mean, it's yeah, probably a little bit. Again, just ask for it in advance, and just even if you're not going somewhere, that's fine. No big deal there, honestly. All right. Let's see here. Just checking all the chats. Cool beans. All right. Oop. There we go. So next submission is titled Exit Interview Survey. Oh, we love those. We love those. Yes, let's provide the employer an opportunity to let you know why you're no longer considering them for feasible employment. Let's do it. All right, so is anyone really fully honest on these? For example, technically, depending on what you provide in these, it can bite you in the ass as being listed as not rehire able on background checks, which would be a red flag for future prospective employers. I'm under the impression that these are all anonymous. Well, no, it's not anonymous. I'm thinking of different surveys. Okay, never mind. So it doesn't help the employee at all. That's how so many of these things are set up, unfortunately. And it's unlikely the company would make any changes. Fair. For example, I'm leaving my job partly because of a toxic star who loves privately and publicly shaming colleagues who are still learning or make very small mistakes. This person makes mistakes all the time, but people aren't publicly shaming him for it. You love those kind of people. As there are more effective and kind ways to advise someone on their mistakes. Very true. I want to notate this in my next exit interview because it's the honest truth and it kind of feels nice to get that off my chest. On the other hand, I highly doubt the company really cares because unfortunately, this person is a toxic star who is actually good at their job. So their toxic behavior is overlooked, but also it's a small company and only myself and a few others have to actually work under him as a leader of sorts. So not everyone realizes how crappy they can be. So the question is, do I actually mention this in my exit interview? It's a survey, and not with an actual person. Or do I just play nice and leave it out since it's not benefiting really anyone? Honestly, I would first consider whether or not you cared, whether or not, so here's the thing. So what I would consider is, one, do you think you'd ever go back to them? It sounds like you wouldn't. And, if anyone, here's another thing. So a lot of questions you'll get in interviews is, how have you handled hard coworkers? I'm always in the vein of like, you can always eloquently cultivate or frame your honesty to where it's honest and it gets the point across and you've spoken your piece without, saying anything that could somehow degrade your reputation as a prospective employee somewhere else. I'm always in the vein of doing that, eloquently say that these things occurred, which caused me legitimate concern in regards to fair treatment or, efficiency of overall teamwork. And I think that this should be overviewed or changed. Ultimately, if this is the kind of work environment it sounds like, then they might put that anyway, even if you don't honestly provide feedback. So one of the things I would definitely look into, if you have something lined up already, this is probably going to be something. Well, one, you got something lined up, so that's not going to be an issue anyway. Otherwise, I'd say if you don't have anything lined up, definitely a call. I'd say, yeah, that's not really good feedback, honestly. But honestly, for me, it's just like, it could also be a thing where it's like, if that's the kind of environment they cultivate, then leave them to their devices. And, that might be something kind of hard to say if you like any of the other employees that you worked with. But that company, that management, they're likely not going to get any better because they allow that kind of environment to be as it is. And that's ultimately not going to serve them very well. So honestly, I would let them drown. Just like, you know what? Don't give them feedback. I mean, I have no issue with providing eloquently framed, honest feedback, but you can also just let them drown in their devices. They're not cultivating a great, stimulating, productive space is what it sounds like. Sure, the person's good at their job, but it's like at the same time, what's that going to do for you? You allow this person to act like crap, and he brings down group morale. If anything, just say that. Say that the way you feel that certain individuals are allowed to interact with the team causes a degradation in team morale. And your concern is that ultimately that will be counterproductive for the company. Turn it back on the employer. Let them know that, make it seem as though it's coming from the vein of, I'm concerned for you, but really you're just getting off their chest. I would take any of those two avenues and just go with it. No judgment here. All right, well, time for one more submission this morning. Let's see here if the page will load. Let's see here. Here we go. All right, so the last submission for this morning is titled, Someone in my department stares at me when he walks past me. Should I report him? Let's get some context. Let's see. Whenever he walks past me, he turns his head and stares at me. Like, are we talking like a lingering stare? Like he's leering at you? Like he stops and looks at you like one of those kind of animations from animated horror stories on YouTube? Because sure, that's creepy, but is it that bad? I'm a guy. He's also a guy. I asked him why he does that. He said there's nothing to worry about. Not the best response. He knows that I don't like it being stared at, and he still does it. One time I asked him, and he got angry and said, do you want me to tie a band on my eyes? Should I report him? He has never hurt me physically. I'm worried that he'll get angry if I report him and will stare at me even more. Please help. Honestly, this is a weird situation, honestly, but it's, as much as I hate to say it, there doesn't seem to be a lot here. I mean, maybe he has a crush on you and he doesn't know how to cultivate his feelings about that. Maybe he's in the closet. It could honestly be something like that. Because otherwise it's a hard call because there's just not a lot here. Again, he hasn't done anything to you physically. He's not aggressive. He sounds annoying, kind of, or he sounds just kind of, understandably, the staring probably puts you at a bit of an unease, but there's just not here enough for me to say, yeah, definitely report him, or just, Here's the thing. Are you afraid of him? Are you honestly afraid of him? And if not, I would turn it into a joke. Play it off. Be like, man, you must really like me to be staring at me like that. And you know what? Be loud about it. If he's doing that as he's walking past you, and if you're in kind of an office or a cubicle situation, announce the hell out of that. Be like, man, why don't you just tell me how much of a crush you got on me staring at me like that? And also, if it's like a stare where everyone kind of notices he does that when he walks by you, absolutely announce it. Disillusion him from the idea of continuing to do that. And again, if you're honestly not afraid of him, and if you honestly are afraid of him, let's reevaluate and figure out where that comes from. Otherwise, play into it hardcore and give him a natural dissuasion for that behavior to continue. Thank you for joining me this morning on Casual Babble. Again, all the links you need for supporting the channel or for engaging the community are going to be in the chat. Check them out. Again, my latest ASMR episode has been recorded. It'll be up to date and available for tier 2 or higher patrons on Patreon. Those links are going to always be in the descriptions, so check those out. In the meantime, I hope you have a great weekend. Happy Friday. Congratulations for making it to Friday, and I hope you have a good day, and I will talk to you